Ohio, and I am a big football fan, and I love to love. That is my superpower, is loving to love, and I became a school teacher because of that. And my first teaching gig was down in Southern Kentucky at a small town in the Appalachian Mountains called Pineville, Kentucky. And getting right out of college and having a town invest in me so much to where a man named Darwin, who was like an OG in the town, he retired just so I could get a position in this town or in this school. And it was absolutely amazing to be in this town. And at the very beginning of the school year, I was hit with some news that my little brother was diagnosed with cancer. Okay, he had a tumor in his brain, about the size of a golf ball. And throughout the year, the school year, I would drive the 3 hours to Cincinnati to go check on my brother and take care of whatever he needed, and then drive back down to Southern Kentucky and do my job as a teacher. And I do this all year round. And at the very, very end of the year, I was faced with a big decision. I saw my mom and my brothers struggling to fight this fight against cancer. And during the weekends, I was a big part of that. You know what I mean? As far as running errands and as far as being that support and just raising the vibrations in a room. And I had a big decision during the end of the year. Do I go back to Cincinnati, Ohio and leave my career behind me? Or do I continue to invest in the people that invested into me? And I remember asking the creator, the universe, or whatever you believe in, I asked Source for an answer. And I BS you not, the very next day when I asked Source for that answer, the creator, I had to go talk to a vice principal. And the vice principal told me to call a number, and there's a principal that's waiting to give you an interview. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm a new teacher. I thought I was going to come back for next year. And the vice principal was like, well, didn't you get a pink slip? And I got a pink slip about 3 months earlier saying that I might not get hired back next year. And I was like, yeah, but I thought everybody gets a pink slip. They was like, we do, but we have to lay you off. And right then and there, I knew that was the creator answering my question. That I didn't have to worry about this town that was investing into me and staying down there. And I had to take that opportunity right then, right there, to go back up to Cincinnati and to care for my brother. And to do that thing, because you can have many jobs, but you only get that one brother. You only get that one person that you love with all your heart, and you got to take full advantage of them. And I knew right then and there that I had such a divine message or a divine connection with Source right then and there. And it's always been a thing to where I have to have some type of maintenance of it. And right now, during COVID-19, I've had to keep that connection and that consciousness during this crisis. And it's so easy, or it's so important for us to do that. So this talk is going to be called Connection and Consciousness During Crisis. So why do we need to have a connection to Source and consciousness during a crisis? I'm going to be putting some quotes down in the chats if you guys want to just, see some of the homework that I've been doing through the Science of Mind, and also the rock star Dr. Joe Dispenza. All right. So so you guys are a big part. Like, a lot of these people in this chat right now are in this meeting right now are a big part of the reason that I had so much anxiety and fear around getting COVID-19, around getting the coronavirus, because I think the average age in CSL is like 90 or something like that. I don't know. It's like really, really old. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. So, hey, Chris, what's up, bro? So, no, seriously. Like, there's a lot of, the first thing that we knew about COVID-19 was that it was taking out older folks. And I just was like, man, I don't want to get coronavirus. At the time, when I first heard about corona and the shutdown, I was in Atlanta, Georgia. And I just went to a wedding. right? So I'd already been around people that had potentially got in contact with coronavirus, and I had to come back over here right before it was mandated for me to start, or for everybody to start self-quarantining. So I'm like, damn, what if I go back to CSL and I contaminate everybody? I don't want to lose Ruth. You know what I mean? Like, I can't give it to Ruth. That would be horrible, you know? And for those who don't know Ruth, she's like 92, 93. She's up there, you know what I mean? She's in her 90s. And, you know, I would just feel so bad if somebody got sick from my community. And I was just, I thought I had a cough. And, you know, that's the first thing. You think you have a cough, you're starting to see if you have a temperature. And I was living in so much fear. But one thing I remembered was what Ernest Holmes said. Now, Ernest Holmes is the founder of Science of Mind. And he's been such a huge help as far as just me staying grounded and really firm into this belief that I have right now in the science of mind and spiritual, and in the Center for Spiritual Living. And what he said was, when problems arrive, here, I'll put it down here. Sorry about that. When problems arise and form, they indicate a pattern of belief, whether in an individual or group of them. Effects follow cause. Okay, so when the problems arrive, it's really not it's like an indication for who you are. Like, the outside indicates who you are on the inside. Your outside indicates who you are on the inside. You know what I mean? Your mindset is an indication, or I'm sorry, your universe and what happens around you is an indication of what's happening inside of you. So if you see beauty and everything that is so abundant on the outside, it's only because you have that within you. And if you see fear and lack, then that's also an indication of what's going on the inside. And I had to take that spiritual journey. I had to really look myself in the mirror, and I had to see, like, what's truly going on. But one thing I also knew that the universe is being governed by the law of attraction, the law of cause and effect. Okay. So we are spiritual beings. What Ernest Holmes said is that we are spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe governed by use of the law of cause and effect. And that's the thing. I determine what happens to me. I am not a victim. I determine that I am not going to be a victim of COVID-19. I'm not going to allow this to rule me, to run my life and the life of the people that I care about. I made a firm decision that this is not going to be something that stops me from my journey to bless as many people as possible with all my capabilities, whether it be raising the vibrations in a room or in a conversation, or teaching someone something. That's my superpower, is being a blessing. And I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to let COVID-19 stop that at all. I took a really good look in the mirror. Okay. Paula, you're supposed to cough in your elbow, by the way. What are you doing?
I'm supposed to be turned off.
So I had to change my thinking. I had a stinking thinking. I had to raise my consciousness. I had to go deeper inside to my spiritual practice of science of mind and find out who I am. All right. And the homie Ernest Holmes said, it's in your chat now, when we discover a new truth or have a better understanding about an old truth, it is really more than this infinite mind revealing itself through us. Okay, so I had to discover a new truth of what is this COVID-19. What can I do? What other resources can I have? And all the old truths. What happened in the past is only an interpretation of my consciousness of what happened in the past. And there can be a new interpretation right here, right now, of an old truth. So that's the understanding that I knew I had to have. A new truth of how else can I be a blessing? How else can what can we do? Okay, we got technology. All right, so I'm going to go on Zoom as much as possible, and I'm going to use all my skills on Zoom, or I'm going to get on YouTube or Facebook and Instagram and everything that I can do in order to help as many people as possible. That was what I determined. I had to really, really get into that. And I always came back to a universal truth. This universal truth was also stated by Ernest Holmes. And it said, and he said, it's in your, that I do not believe that there is anything in the universe which is against us but ourselves. Everything is and must be for us. Everything is for us. The universe unfolds perfectly for our own good. That's what I know in my soul. That is just, I know that as much as the sun coming up tomorrow, that the universe unfolds perfectly and it unfolds for my own good and your own good and everybody's own good. That's what I know in my heart of hearts. So why I had to have this connection is because, man, I got a job to do as far as raising consciousness and raising energy and just being the guy that that was not gonna stop. I mean, the schools were closed and I was broke. You know what I mean? I lost my job. I guess you could say I was a substitute teacher and I was doing coaching on the side. So of course, there was fear. Of course, there was lack. Like goodness gracious, and I'm afraid of getting people sick. Like I don't want to make Luis sick. I love Luis. You know what I mean? I just had to look deep, dig deep inside, and like know that that's the old truth, and that the new truth is that there's new ways to be a blessing, and that I that the universe unfolds perfectly, and that it's going to unfold just right, so I can still be that blessing. So what do I have to do? Okay, the next thing I have to do is I have to realize what Ernest Holmes said was true, and what he said was everything is God and everything is spiritual. Everything is God and everything is spiritual. So even this COVID-19 is a piece of God. Even this COVID-19 is a spiritual embodiment of something within us. You know, like it's just the world is sick. So therefore there is a sickness that is taking people out. We are sick in some way, shape, or form. I don't take anything away from my responsibility to the whole human consciousness. You know what I mean? Everything from the pollution in the world, everything to Donald Trump being president. I take my personal responsibility on that as well, to everything. You know what I mean? And boom, if everything is God, then that means there is and everything in God in the universe unfolds perfectly. That means that there is some type of good in this somewhere. And that I have to do my part to raise that consciousness. I have to do my part to make things better. I have to be the cure. That's what I needed to do. That's what I determined that I had to do. So I thought to myself, there's a guy who is not necessarily spiritual, but he is spiritual, and he's a doctor. His name is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And what he said is, why are you secretly expecting something different to show up in your life when you think the same thoughts, perform the same actions, and experience the same emotions every single day? Isn't that the definition of insanity? And I'm like, I'm going insane over here. Okay, so I'm expecting the universe to unfold perfectly. I'm expecting, that everything is good in God, but what am I doing differently? I needed to change my habits. First of all, I needed to change my way of thinking. And my main gig now, ever since this is over and I'm not a substitute teacher anymore, I'm sorry, ever since school got out, they don't need substitute teachers, you know what I mean? So ever since I got out, or ever since the schools closed, I've had to go into my training as a trainer and practitioner of neurolinguistic programming, which is pretty much a way to talk to yourself and talk to your mind and to yourself, to your heart, in order to get what you desire. Okay. And Ernest Holmes has a quote of something that really resonates with me as far as my practice. Okay. It's kind of a longer quote, but it says, it's not that our emotions, our feelings are unruly children who need discipline. It's more that they are indicators of the direction and composite of our thoughts, our values, our perceptions. When we open to an awareness of what is causing them, we can become the chooser of our responses rather than an emotional reactor. And that's it. Like, my thoughts were directing how I was feeling. So if I had to change my thoughts, I had to change the way I was doing things so I wouldn't go through all this insanity anymore. And that my emotions are connected to my thoughts. There's also a guy there's also a book that I read called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, from a guy who you guys should check out. It's a phenomenal book. The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind was written by T. Harv Eker. And he says that our programming leads to our thoughts leads to our feelings, Our feelings leads to our actions, and our actions lead to our results. So I had to change my programming. I had to change what was going on in my thoughts and my subconscious mind more than anything. I have this ability. I have this calling to do something great. But hell, if I'm not doing nothing different, then how can I expect to do anything for anyone, including myself? So boom. So during this time of crisis, I knew that it was important to grind, to work. I had a decision on what type of season was this going to be. Was this going to be a season of winter where things die and things are cold and where things have some type of downfall, whether it be a downfall of snow or a downfall of my consciousness? Was it going to be a winter or was it going to be a spring? And you know what happens in spring? You know, things are born. You know what I mean? There's opportunity that arises. I was determined not to make this a winter, okay? And Ernest Holmes, he says something about that as well. He says, boop, when things look the worst is the best time to work, the most satisfying time. The person who can throw himself with a complete abandon into limitless sea of receptivity, having cut loose from all apparent moorings, is the one who will always receive the great reward. And I was ready for that reward. I was ready to work. I know, like, man, there is consciousness out there that has to be risen. There are people out there that have to be reminded of who they are. There is, oh my gosh. So, man, it's time to just throw myself full into it. So I made an online course. I started reaching out to more people for my services as a trainer of neurolinguistic programming, helping them release themselves from themselves. And it felt so amazing. And I just remembered a principle. It was time to look within and know what a principle of the science of mind is. And it's the third principle. It says, we believe the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. We believe that heaven is within us and that we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. And I want to make it fully conscious that there is nothing but joy within me. That is joy within you. It may be masked by something. It may be torn down by the nonsense that you may be seeing on the news and CNN, but there is life within all of this, within every single bit of the world. There's so much hope. I mean, we've seen so many beautiful things, from the people that are singing on the balconies in Italy, to the amount of people that were giving masks to strangers, to the people that were saying hello through windows of nursing homes. There was so much hope in there, and that we have a heaven within us, and we just have to search for it. We have to really realize it, and that starts with our consciousness. Our consciousness, ladies and gentlemen. So how do I get rid of this feeling? How do I hold on to the feeling more than anything? So the question is, how am I going to get rid of any fear and take action that I knew was going to manifest abundance and prosperity? And Dr. Joe Dispenza said it. Dr. Joe Dispenza said it very, very well when he says, how do you become more observant? You break your emotional bonds with the body, the environment, and time, and close the gap. The answer is simple, ladies and gentlemen, and it's through meditation. It's through meditation. It's by meditating on yourself and becoming the observer of your thoughts, the observer of yourself, instead of being a reactor to this 3D world. It has to go deeper. And meditation is a synonym, in fact, for self-observation as well as self-development. Okay, that's what Dr. Joe Dispenza said, in fact, that in his book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. He said meditation is a synonym for self-observation as well as self-development. And I had to observe myself, where my negative emotions and limiting beliefs came from in the very first place. Because it's not COVID-19. It's not COVID-19 that's bringing up the fear. It's not COVID-19 that was bringing up the lack. It was so much more that goes back to when I was a little kid and I had these patterns of either the patterns that I did in order to feel safe when I was a child, or the patterns that I had picked up from the people that I observed in my environment of how to react. It wasn't now. And I had to observe that, to where my negative emotions were coming from. And Dr. Joe also says that the key moment in making any change is going to be in observing it. So observing where that came from. So that's when I started to do the work as a practitioner of neurolinguistic programming. And I started meditating. I would meditate on the times when I was a little kid and I first felt fear. That first time when I felt fear. And my mom, hopefully she doesn't watch this recording, but it was when I was going to get a spanking. That was one of the first times that I felt fear. That it was, I'll never forget it. I had acted up in school. My grandma told my mom that I came home. My mom wasn't home yet. My grandma said, "I'm going to tell your mom, and when she gets home, she'll deal with you." I took a bath early. I went to bed early. I turned off the lights, and I couldn't sleep because I knew my mom was coming home, but I pretended to sleep. I heard the door open. My mom talked to my grandma. She was like, "Okay, I'll take care of it." And then she got closer to my room, and then she passed my room and went to her room. I thought, "Oh my gosh, I'm safe." And then I heard the sound. Her door opened, and the most terrifying sound I ever heard in my life, the sound of the belt buckle coming to my room. I knew it was the most terrifying sound I ever heard in my life. And I proceeded after that to get that spanking that I well deserved. And that's controversial, but I deserved that spanking. You know what I mean? So that fear, I had to go back to that fear and be an observer from a third person point of view. Where did that fear come from? That fear came from the fact that I got that spanking. Now, on all accounts, in that whole situation, I had to remember that hurt people, and that we're all doing the best that we can with the resources and consciousness that we have. The resources and consciousness that we have. My mom didn't understand conversation at that time. She thought that discipline meant spankings. And I had to have a peace with that. So from observing that from a third person point of view, your mind, your subconscious mind lets go, lets the feeling of that negative emotion go. And then it holds on to the positive learning. And that is the remarkable thing, that you can let go of that fear. You can let go of that trigger right here, right now. And it's right within everything that I learned in the science of mind, everything that I've learned from Rev Rita and Rev Patrick. So always, and then Dr. Joe says, always, he says, always, in order to change, we love to come to a new understanding of self and the world so that we can embrace a new knowledge and have a new experience. I had a new experience of that spanking, a brand new experience of that spanking, that my mom just had a lack of consciousness. And therefore, she still loves me. That was her way of showing love. And that's all. And that was her way of showing love. And that just made my relationship with my mother that much closer, to where now we have an amazing relationship, and she's doing so well during this time of COVID-19. Boom. So that fear is gone. And now I can take care of even more business. But in creating a new habit of but Dr. Joe also said, Command C. He also said, in creating a new habit of being ourselves, we are essentially taking conscious control over what had become an unconscious process of being. We had to change our thoughts and feelings, then do something to change our actions or behaviors. All right, we have to change our actions. It's just not about changing our thoughts. We can think differently, but we don't act differently, then nothing is happening subconsciously. And I'm sorry, I got off of his quote. He said, which in turn produces a new feeling, and then we must memorize that feeling until we move into a new state of being. I became a new person during this COVID-19. I became a better person during this COVID-19. By changing the way I thought about my world and felt about my world, I can conduct myself in a different world, a world that's different, and a person now that's different preparing for this world. So now my thoughts are totally different than they were because of that meditation exercise. And Dr. Joe also says, Command C, Keep saying. There is a principle in neuroscience called Hebb's law that cells that fire together wire together. Hebb's credo demonstrates that if you repeatedly activate the same nerve cells, then each time they turn on, it will be easier for them to fire in unison again and again. Eventually, those neurons will establish a long-term relationship. So now I had to get up and demand that I acted that differently with a different mindset every single day and stay principled within the science of mind, knowing that I created my universe through my thoughts. And without those emotions, then I have different thoughts, and now I have different actions, and now I have different results. So I stuck to my guns. And Ernest Holmes said that consistency is important. Consistent negative thoughts get us into most of our trouble. Consistent positive thoughts is the only thing that can get us out. And ladies and gentlemen, I just had consistent positive thoughts about all the possibilities, all the people that I love, and staying in gratitude, total gratitude for all my blessings, that I live in paradise. Like, this is a paradise not only because of the beauty of the Malka and Makai, but also the wonderful people that are here. And the fact that we don't have any cases of COVID-19 when so many people out there are still living in fear and suffering. Man, I mean, but even if you are out there, you still have an opportunity to be a blessing all the time. Like, man, what an opportunity. What a way to give back to the universe that has already given you so much, to live on a planet that has oxygen. Like, even that, to have an opportunity to just appreciate something. We could be a rock on Saturn, you know what I mean? But we're here. We get to experience this all the time. Like, man, what a world that we get to live in. Even if you're living in Idaho, like, you can still appreciate what's going on around you. So I go back to Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he says you can go from thinking about the ideal self you want to become straight to being the new self. That is the key to the quantum creating. And I was creating a new field around me, to where I started connecting with more people that were being a positive influence on me and my spirit. I started connecting with the motivational speakers through YouTube. Again, that helped me change the person who I am. You know, and I changed. And Dr. Joe also says, I hope I'm not hitting you guys with too many quotes. He says that to change then is to be greater than our present circumstances and greater than our environment. And I just had to walk with a different bravado, walk with a different faith, walk from a different standpoint of I am a spiritual being in a spiritual universe that is just witnessing something through this form, and that there is so much more. And I found a faith. I found a new faith in the universe. I found a new faith in humanity. And Ernest Holmes has a great quote about faith. He says that faith is the movement of consciousness and perception of expectance and an interior awareness. Hence, it can be consciously generated. And I expected abundance. Dr. Tony Robbins, he's a famous inspirational speaker and teacher who blesses millions around the world every single day. And he said that people were getting rich during that recession, that people were still making money, a lot of money during that recession. And I just thought about myself, and I asked myself, why can't I? Why can't I have prosperity during this time? I mean, when people get their stimulus checks, they were still spending it. I'd rather have that exchange of energy between myself and another person and help bless them in order to take care of myself and my needs as well. I want to be that amazing blessing to them, so I can make sure that they get their money's worth, money back guarantee, that you're going to get this spirit, you're going to get this love, no matter what. That's how I am with myself. You're going to get this love. And that consciousness of expecting prosperity, expecting abundance, expecting to be taken care of no matter what, had just run over me. And Dr. Joe says that, can you give thanks and feel elevated emotions associated with a desired event before it occurs? Can you feel it? Can you get that emotion? Because that's what actually, let's finish the quote. Can you imagine that reality so completely that you begin to be in that future life now? And that's where it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's the law. That's the law right there. That your thoughts and your feelings consistently control your reality and what you manifest in our lives, what we all manifest. And I just knew that I had to be in a different place. So though I was in that, my bank account wasn't reflecting, my knowledge, I expected it to be consistently rising all the time. That I expected me to be taking calls with folks, that I expected to be healthy, that I expected my family and friends to be healthy, that I expected COVID-19 to lower in Kaua'i all the time. I expected the good things. It didn't look at the nonsense. I fed my mind all the great things instead of the CNN and the Fox News and the nonsense, the statistics. They didn't matter. What matters is consciousness, and your consciousness and our consciousness around this. So last but not least is this one quote that really motivated me from Ernest Holmes, the OG of Science of Mind. And he said, whatever we think, believe in, feel, visualize, vision, imagine, read, talk about, in fact, all processes which affect our or impress us at all are going into the subjective state of our thought, which is our individualized use of universal mind. And I see a different world now. The grass is greener because I'm watering it. I'm watering it in my thoughts. You know what I mean? The people are healthier and smiling bigger than ever because I see it in my thoughts. And I've helped myself through the meditation get rid of that stinking thinking that I had, that BS, right? That BS that Patrick always talks about, that belief system, that of anything negative, any negative emotions or limiting beliefs that I had, I've meditated on them from a third person point of view and become an observer. And now, through the science of mind and a little bit of neurolinguistic programming sprinkled on top of it, and the teachings of Dr. Joe Dispenza and Ernest Holmes, I've grown exponentially throughout this time. So I've had a connection and consciousness being risen during crisis. Thank you.
Does anybody have any
Thank you,
questions?
Charles.
That was great, Charles. Thank you. So inspirational and energizing for sure.
I wish you had a little more enthusiasm. That would have helped.
Let me take some more of this coffee then.
So this is the time if you want to chime in and have something, a question or a comment or
just something that came up for you.
Something that came up for you, anything.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I do. Thank you. And those quotes were awesome. And I don't think I've ever heard them read quite so passionately before. Nor have I heard Ernest be called homie or OG. So I have to say, and what I love about you is the energy that you bring to this, because let me tell you, like, I was the youngest in my ministerial class. And so I feel like you reach a whole, along with everybody else, but you have a way to reach younger people who need this just as much as people who are, wherever they are in life. And I appreciate that. And it really brought up, like, same thing, like I was in fear at first and, had my moments of freaking out, and then we got to work, and I was just looking, we have a budget app, and so we're thriving in the middle of a pandemic. And I know it's because of the inner work that we got into, because we are certainly not working out there. And I really appreciated that. I knew what to do. right? Like we just kind of got back to what we've always been doing, but it felt like we started doing it together, first of all. So
Yeah.
that felt powerful. But also, it helped us take that focus that you were talking about of out there, because when I started to look at what was happening off island, it was very terrorizing and it is terrifying. But I also got that me being terrified doesn't help anybody. It certainly doesn't help myself, but I can't help other people either, in that state. So I just appreciated hearing about like the getting to work part, because it didn't just happen. Like we put the time and the effort, and of course it's been cumulative. We didn't just start working. I feel like we just dug in deeper and we just got more consistent with it.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, you're always one to do the spiritual work too, Michelle. I mean, and you too, Ronald. You guys are always in the classes. You know what I mean? Like, it's and congratulations on everything. So yeah, it's about just continuing to work and just digging in, instead of like when crisis comes, when that discomfort comes, you can either run away from it or lean into it. And that's what it sounds like we did. We leaned into it and we just got to work. We worked harder. And it's just like any type of muscle or exercise. When you work out and you fit and you're running, all of a sudden that side pain comes and it's like, uh-oh, what are you going to do? Are you going to slow down, or are you going to keep going and keep grinding and just work that mental muscle, that spiritual muscle, and just grow stronger from it? So great job, you guys.
Yeah, and some of your quotes were actually on my ministerial exam, so I thought that was interesting.
So I'm already ready.
Yeah.
I think, Charles, it was very funny to, I agree with Michelle about hearing Ernest Holmes in a whole different way. And what's so funny is everyone goes, Ernest Holmes, we got to get to the new. But hearing him, he's brand new to me, man. And I've been doing this for 20 something years. And I heard him in a way that was so alive and so powerful. And so I think there's something that he said, when brilliance is written, it's all in the delivery of how you execute it and get it out into the world. So I think Ernest still has a lot to say. A lot to say. So, thank you for doing that. And you're right, you will reach the younger people, especially, I mean, us 90-year-olds that are all here at CSL. We will be able to, the ones that are in jeopardy right now, we'll be talking later, Charles. Anyway, I'll turn that over to someone else.
I think Marion has something to say.
Marion,
Yes.
come in.
Oh. Well, I have a question and two observations. My question is, what is OG?
OG is a term that was coined in some of the lower socioeconomic areas of the United States, and it stands for original gangster.
Oh. Okay.
I thought it was old Bali. Go ahead, Ms.
Thank you. I've expanded my vocabulary now. Thank you. And two observations. One is that NLP is a CSL practice. I mean, it's a practice based in the science of mind and spirit, really. And I never knew that until listening to you just now, Charles, because NLP is what helped me stop smoking when I was 33, which was ages ago. Well, it has to be like 70 years ago.
I thought it was like 7 days ago. Girl, you look good.
So, well, I know that you think of me as young, Charles, because that fear that you had didn't apply the day you were running on the path and you were all sweaty and you gave me a big hug. It was before all the rules. So I want to say that for the recording. It was before the rules. So that's one observation, is how powerful a practice, and my guess is there are many other practices that are out in the world that are really so connected to this philosophy. And the other observation is about my husband, who, when the pandemic started, kind of sort of thought he was going to put his big project, which is a huge vision, on hold for a while. But then he didn't. And he moved forward, and all the pieces of it started coming together right during the pandemic. It's mind-blowing. His team started building from all over the world, people connecting into it. I think it was maybe, well, I don't know. It doesn't matter why. It's just that he held the vision and he took the next step.
Mm.
And I remember the moment when he thought he was going to have to shelve it for a while. And it was kind of this, oh. And I thought, well, that's just what is. But it wasn't what is. What is what we create. So thank you. That was a good observation I had from listening to you, Charles. And I love listening to you and feeling your energy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's that part, you know, he linked into it. He's like, I mean, and that's the thing, when you have a community of people that raise their consciousness as well, or have a higher consciousness around you, there is no fear that can survive. You got to get that bloated nothingness out of the way, right? Got to get that bloated nothingness, out of your universe, and just believe that that purpose that you had before any catastrophe and before any crisis can still be manifested. And it's so crazy because the creator, I was like, I'm in the genesis of my company right now, and I didn't know a lot of my marketing was off, a lot of my sales process was off, and just my whole practice was just being pieced together. But like one big piece of consciousness would come into it, and then another one, and then another one, and now everything's coming together to where I just know that I'm in such a better position to be so much more effective to people through my services and my online course, to where I'm not gonna be, I'm gonna be in a better position, just like in every single way, spiritually, mentally, financially, with my friendships and people that I love. I'm more willing to reach out to people now. Those texts that I used to wait for, or be scared to send. No, just send that text, send it. It's so important to connect with my mom now, and to also just be that friend that I need to be. That's I mean, when you have something, especially something as special as what Glenn was doing, you got to keep going with it, no matter what. The universe depends on it. We all depend on it. Paulo, I can't hear you.
Now can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I feel like I've been run over by a train. And so on the NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, I have trouble meditating. I have a really hard time doing this, observing myself from a third-person point of view. And that seems to be the basis of your knowledge and change. So what do you recommend for that?
Just sparking that imagination, man. Just spark that imagination. Just see yourself right here, right now. Green shirt, muscles everywhere.
Muscles.
I know, but glasses on, headphones, just like observe yourself right here, right now. Then like go back to that moment when you were younger, and then you can observe it from a third person point of view. But act like you're a spirit or a ghost above it. You can't be seen, you can't be touched, you can't be, you can't, no one can hear you, no one can see you. You just observe that event, and then just see what you can learn from that event. Be the observer, like Dr. Joe said. Just be the observer.
So do they have to be traumatic events?
No, not at all. Not at all. Just an event that you think can, if you want to clear it up, then go ahead and clear it up if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, do I need to do something to go off here?
I think that, oh, I can't hear you, Patrick.
I was talking about Rita looked over at me during your belt story. And because I do a lot of work with the inner child, and that's what we do. We go back and we reframe.
Yes.
We go back and we tell the story from a different perspective,
Yes.
not for the sake of just telling the story.
No.
Like, oh boy, I got to tell this story again, like I've done in my past numerous times.
Right.
You know, but you go back and you really stand above and really talk to the story, talk to the belt, talk to the what really went on there, so that when other people aren't walking in. It was really told really well too, Charles, that story of the belt, because we keep waiting for a belt, and it has nothing to do with your mother anymore. It has to do with whoever walks in that's going to give you the answer to what you need, or a job that you want. And so it's so important to go back and really reframe the very story that we thought was so traumatic, but it actually just is a lesson. So it was great. So and you were a good storyteller for it too. So.
Thank you. I know that I did a little research on meditation, and I think the University of Texas said that it relaxes the amygdala. No, psychologytoday.com said it. A doctor on there said it relaxes the amygdala. And the University of Texas said that the amygdala is the part that controls the part that has the emotions within your body. Right. Okay. So when you relax the amygdala and you look at something and you be that observer and tell something from a different story, like you do with your child work, you're relaxing that emotions in it, and you're getting something from a different perspective. So therefore you're locking it in your subconscious. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Very
well, you tell a different story, and the little boy or little girl can grow up then.
Exactly.
Still holding on to the belt.
Exactly. It's not
holding on to the story, and they can have a beneficial future. Luis, I don't know what time, let's check the time.
52.
Do you have anything, Luis, you'd like to express before Ron does? Again. We see Ron, you're next after Luis. Did you say yes?
Well, first of all, thank you, Charles. That was very uplifting, you know, and from the first time I met you, I observed you as an already evolved being, a beautiful being. And this time off, what I see is that you've evolved even more, you know, which is really, really great. As I hearing you talk, I said, man, we must have a quantum connection, because a lot you were saying, I was connecting, you know, especially with this time off. Being retired, I always was saying, oh, now I could do the things that, you know, you didn't find time to do when you're putting in a lot of hours at work. So, you know, I fill my time with that. And at the same time, even with all that, I kept saying, because there's so much out there that's available to you, a lot of good stuff, as we know, you know, and then even in retirement, I might say, man, I wish I had more time, you know, but at the same time, with this downtime, what it allowed me to do, you know, when I say the quantum connection, I did find plenty of time. I don't know if you could see the yellow in there, but it goes on for, I was using my marker for, I mean, continuous, for a lot of chapters. And I was just marking stuff. And there's no doubt in my mind, like Rita says, Ernest Holmes is a mystic. And that becomes very clear in the writings, you know, because sometimes a person can spend, like me, I could spend a whole half hour on just one page to get the full understanding of what Ernest was saying. So, you know, he speaks my language. I understand what he's saying, you know, and I connect with that. And I appreciate this time that I was able to, you know, read, you know, a good portion of the book. So that's really, really good.
That's awesome.
And then when you mention Dr. Joe, Rita's favorite, that my daughter, she lives in Arizona. So I recently, she's going to go on a trip for about 4 months with a friend traveling, you know, in a motorhome, and she's going to spend a month in Utah. So I sent her the recent book that we have at the store at CSL, the most recent Joe Dispenza one.
Becoming Supernatural?
Green one?
Becoming Super.
What's the other one? Is that the one with the thick one? Volume?
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself?
No, it's one of those, because I haven't read it, but I know Joe Dispenza from, my God, the first time I saw him from What the Bleep Do You Know, I said, oh my God, you know, there's some good stuff here, you know? So I did send her that, you know, that was all good, you know? So yeah, there are good things. And when you mention like the elderly, talking to my father recently, he said, he lives in California, and he said that some things are opening up, and they were talking about one of his favorite, he's 93 years old, and one of his favorite pastimes is puts on his jacket, his hat, and he loves to play poker. He goes to the casino, play poker. So he's feeling good about that, because I know with all this stress and going on, that's not good for an elderly person. He needs things to uplift him, you know, that's all good for him, you know. And yeah, good things too is that with more opening as far as the parks and everything, you know, we all were feeling good to be out, you know, over at Lidgate. We had no problem in holding hands. We had no problem in hugging, you know, and we ate and had a good time. And it was good to see at CSL that we lightened up a little bit, and we were able to, you know, hold hands and hug, you know, so that was really good. So there are, you know, good things from this, you know, and which gives us more time to, like you say, meditate and go deeper within ourselves, because I agree, you know, what comes from within allows you, you know, as you go deep enough, allows you a better way to handle with what's going on, you know, much better, you know, rather than think too much and think of, oh God, I have to, you know, that's down the wrong path. I agree 100%. And the only other thing that, well, we know about the downside with the shutdown, you know, the schools and churches and all that. But from my own personal, I'm disappointed, well, disappointed yet, but I understand that, you know, singing with Kaua'i voices, it's been suspended indefinitely until, you know, it opens up again. And the only thing other than, and I did ask Walt about it, you know, singing for the Kaua'i, the hospice, you know, because our group of us, we sing, dance, and play music. We were playing music up to 2 times a month at assisted living residences. And, you know, so it's been months, you know, and that was something that was so uplifting for them, you know. I mean, it just was so good for them, you know. So my concern is I hope they're doing all right, you know. I know they're being well taken care of, you know, and I know they do things to keep their attention, you know. And I don't think they play the, you know, the news for them and stuff like that. So it's all good. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna throw Ron in, and I think that then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
I just had one question for Charles, you know, about that belt incident. Did your mama take her earrings off?
Hey, listen, man, I don't know what she had on. I just know that I know what I took off and what happened after that. You know, there was a lot of, you know, with the science of mind, like, you know, we just recognize that we are source, and that, or I'm sorry, that there's only one source, and we are source, and what we like, and then we know what we want, what we need. And I know I needed bravery. I needed to be courageous. I needed compassion and forgiveness for myself and others. And that was just something that I needed to have for everyone, including my mom, including all the people all these situations that I had in the past that really hindered me from living a life of fulfillment. So, you know, to know something, I really had to truly know from myself, of one without a lot of baggage and issues that I needed to clear up. and then I could be grateful for it, manifesting into my life in a more abundant way, and give that Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? Real talk.
Know thyself. That leads you to the road to freedom.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
Charles, we want to thank you. We're going to do a little closeout, and we're just going to give you another applause or however we want to do it.
Thanks,
And so let's just take a moment to just bathe in the gratitude and marinate in this wonderful energy that Charles has created for each and every one of us that have arrived in this beautiful technology called Zoom. What I do know is that this energy that has been so freely and so lovingly given to each and every one of us, that each and every one of us have received exactly what it is that we came here for, and that energy doesn't stay right here in this moment only, that we take this energy, we take whatever it is that has sparked us, that divine fire within us, and we take it out for ourselves, individually and collectively. And I know that our planet is always prospering from these wonderful moments of these gems that have been presented today. So with gratitude in my heart, I just know that it is time to just let go, let God, let our entire love beings just go forth from this place. And I'm so grateful. And I just release my word, knowing that love goes forward and the law makes it so, as together we say. And so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you, everyone.
So
Love
it
you
is.
guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Mwah. Thank you, Charles.
Aloha. Don't
Very
forget
good.
Sunday. Right? Love you.
Love
Bye.
you.
Love you all. Bye.
Bye.